Likewise. Well, hi. Pleasure to see you. How's everything? Fine, fine. Okay, man. Good job on dinner tonight. That was
Thank
good.
you.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Oh, the seven, okay.
So what you gonna be doing?
Okay. Well, we'll just get things going, all right? We've got some recognition. Okay. At this time, the mayor will call to order the regular city council meeting for 6 p.m. Tuesday, August 22nd of 2023, City Council Chambers, 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas. We have with us in the chambers District 2, Grady Simpson, District 3, Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem, District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, and not here but on his way, running a little late, is District 5, Phil Robinson. At this time, I'd like to welcome Minister Jordan Woodruff from the Rockwall and Bryn Church of Christ. He will lead us in invocation. If you'll please come forward. And then if you would rise, remain standing for the pledges.
All right, if you all bow with me. Almighty Father in heaven, we praise you and thank you for being a loving God and calling us your children. Lord, we come before you on bended knee in reverence, and we recognize that you are in control of all things. And Lord, we submit to your sovereignty in this time and in this place. Lord, I thank you for this city. I thank you for each man and woman here and their heart to serve and their ability to serve and the duty that they have taken upon their shoulders. Not an easy one, not a light one, but one that is heavy and loaded with responsibility, but they knew that. And I pray that you strengthen them, strengthen their hearts, help them to be of good resolve and peace as they discuss vital things to the health of the city. And Lord, I pray for their families as they lift them up and support them as well, as we know that none of us could do what we do without our spouses and our children and our families and our loved ones. So Lord, I pray that you watch over us this day as not only we have this city in mind, but this world and this country. And we know that by your strength alone and the strength of Christ in us, we are able to serve and make an impact, and that we start small here in our homes and in our hometown, and that we pray that causes a ripple effect into this country, into the rest of the world. And so with that, we have joy in our hearts knowing that you are the one that lead us to do such tasks. Lord, I pray that we are humble. May we have no hint of pride in us. May we have all grace in our conduct and be reminded that you have given us a spirit of power and control and of love, not one of timidity and fear. Lord, I pray for all of those in this city that are hurting, those that are spiritually lost and dying. Lord, I pray that you use us to bring them back to Christ, bring them to you, bring them to know you. And Lord, may your name be glorified above all else. You are Yahweh, you are Jehovah, you are King of kings and Lord of lords, and we are your servants, Lord. Bless us this evening, and it's in the holy name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. All right, thank you. Minister, if you would please come forward. Thank you for coming and leading us in invocation today. You'll find out he's new, right? He's from Oregon, actually, and he's complaining about it's a little cool here in Texas, right? But he'll get used to it, all right?
Yes,
but
sir.
no, we're celebrating our sesquicentennial, 150 years, and on behalf of the mayor and the council, we'd like to issue you one of our challenge coins for
Thank
you to
you.
keep. And I think Allison's going to take a picture.
Thank you very much.
And job well done. Thank you. Did y'all?
God bless.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Happy to be here.
right, next on the agenda is mayor and council community recognition and events. I'd like to start off with Councilwoman Stephanie Holmes Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor, Council,
You have your mic on?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, good.
and visitors. Although the school year has gotten off to a good start, the city recognizes that it has been with some tragic losses. We want to join with TISD as they mourn the death of a Terrell High School student who was killed in a shooting incident, a teacher who lost her teenage daughter to illness, a third family who has been displaced from their home due to a fire. Please join us in a moment of silence as we pray for each of these families in our community.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Next is going to be Diana Roman. If you would please come forward. And tonight we have the privilege of recognizing some of our local residents who recently completed their citizenship classes through a partnership with Trinity Valley Community College and the Kaufman County Community United, a local nonprofit headed up by Diana Roman. So thank you for all that you do in our community. I would like for you to take the lead, and let's start with the Terrell Police Department. I think they have some presentations, and we'll just go one at a time. And we'll start with Terrell PD.
At this time, we would like to call Mr. Inocente Alvarado, Luis Castillo, and Azucena Salazar.
And if y'all would, you're going to have several recognitions, so if you'll just stay there for me. So I believe we have certificates in your honor. Diana, would you like to read into the microphone there? One of them?
Okay.
And that way we can,
We want to do it together? Sure. Okay, we'll let you do the honors.
okay, cool.
On behalf of the Terrell Police Department, we would like to recognize and congratulate you for receiving your United States citizenship, and we present you with these certificates.
Thank you.
Welcome, and we hope you have a good stay here in the city of Terrell.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Congressman Lance Gooden was regrettably not able to attend tonight, but he has asked that I present you with a congressional special recognition and a flag. So congratulations.
All right. We also have the school district, right? Yes.
On behalf of the school district and the Trinity Valley Community College, just our entire education community, we commend you and we thank you. We're so proud of you. Congratulations. It's my honor to present these to you this evening.
Thank you.
We also have the Terrell Chamber of Commerce. Oh.
Thank you. On behalf of the Terrell Chamber of Commerce, we want to congratulate you and welcome you as a citizen of the United States. Congratulations.
Trinity Valley Community, well, Noni, go ahead.
Yeah.
Kaufman County Leadership.
Yeah, so on behalf of the Kaufman County Comunidad Unida, we would like to present you all with certificates for your completion of the citizenship class.
Is there someone from Trinity Valley?
Yes, Dr. Warnock.
Okay, Doctor. Oh, you, okay, cool. How about,
On the envelope. On the envelope, right.
so we also had Keith Bell's office, right?
Keith Bell cannot attend,
Right.
since his
Okay,
both representatives said that they'll be here for the December one.
okay,
We have more coming.
okay.
Okay, so, House of Representatives, certificate of congratulations to all whom these presented shall come. The certificate is presented to Luis M. Castillo. It is my privilege to extend cordial congratulations on receiving your United States citizenship. So this is Inocente. And that's his brother.
Wonderful. And then also, the mayor and the city council, we would also like to give you one of our points. Council, would y'all like to take a photo? Y'all please come forward. Please. No, you'll be right here. This is your day.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Congratulations. Congratulations. Is this nice man related to you guys? Who is this? Hey, thank you so much for everything you do. You're doing a great job. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, as we continue for the record, please note that District 5 Phil Robinson is here. Next on the agenda, oh no, one more, I almost forgot, and I saved the best for last. We have someone with us today, a council member, who is celebrating a birthday. And this is District 3, Councilwoman Velasquez. So happy birthday from the mayor and the rest of the council. She made the mayor promise I wouldn't say which one, so I'm not going to do that. But next on the agenda is to hear remarks from visitors.
Mayor?
Yes,
If I could, before we move on to.
yes.
I just want to say a brief thank you, echo the thank you that Councilmember Thomas shared earlier for both our fire department, our school district, our Chamber of Commerce, and all the community members that have stepped up to support not only the tragic incident that happened with our Terrell High School students and those affected, family members and community members, but also those that have donated items for that family that lost their home located in my district off of High Street. And there are boxes set up by the school district that are receiving clothing for those students, I believe all the way from ages like 5 through adult small. So feel free to connect with those and with the school entities, and I believe even the Chamber of Commerce, to find out a little bit more about what they're accepting and when you can drop those off as well.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Next on the agenda is hear remarks from visitors. We do have one. Former mayor of the city of Terrell, former judge of Kaufman County, Hal Richards. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Hal Richards. I live at 4 Cartwright Street. First thing is, The city of Terrell has got to do something about this heat. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm off script a little bit. I just came to speak in favor of the proposed action from the council tonight in support of the Terrell Municipal Airport master plan and business plan. I've been following this and been to some of the meetings, and I will tell you that the city staff, Glenn and Steve and Chris, has done a fantastic job, but I really want to commend the airport board and Bill Hutchmaker, who have been navigating this process. This is I believe that probably the Terrell Airport might be the largest financial asset owned by the city of Terrell, and we're on the brink of really taking advantage of that great asset. So I just speak in support of both of those, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Hal. Next, is there anyone else? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 6, discuss and consider the minutes of from the regular city council meeting on August the 15th of 2023. Is there a motion, please?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from the regular city council meeting on August 15, 2023 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Phil Robinson, District 5, to approve the regular city council meeting minutes of August the 15th of 2023 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 7.1. Greg, would you read into the record, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight Resolution number 2095, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell providing direction to the city manager regarding implementing council priorities from proposed certificates of obligation series 2023C. Whereas City Council has scheduled consideration of debt issuance series 2023C certificates of obligation and wishes to proactively give instruction to the city manager in anticipation and contingent upon the approval of certificates of obligation series 2023C, and whereas the City Council on August 8, 2023 adopted the 3-year strategic plan including initiatives related to Fire Station number 3, local streets, and other major goals of the City Council, and whereas the City Council approved and finalized land acquisition at the corner of Rexall Court and Apache Trail, adequate for the construction of Fire Station number 3, such location recommended by technical study to maximize resource efficiency and minimize emergency response time for the Terrell Fire Department, personnel situated at Station number 1, City Hall, Station number 2, Baker Street, and the new Station number 3, Apache Trail. And whereas the City Council first authorized an annual digital engineering assessment of all city streets in 2020, then utilized the results to select a series of annual improvements, which in 2023 alone, it totals $1.6 million in pay-as-you-go local street maintenance, and the City Council now wishes to move forward, focusing on a series of streets graded by those assessments as requiring the capital expense of overall reconstruction. And whereas the proposed certificates of obligation, Series 2023C, would provide funding for the uses published in the official public notice, including but not limited to construction of Fire Station number 3, remodel of existing Fire Station number 2, and capital reconstruction of council-selected local streets. And whereas the 10-year capital plan currently under council review calls for an additional $8 million in certificates of obligation for local street improvements in the fall of 2024, and whereas the City Council wishes to give clear direction to the city manager so that these improvements proceed promptly to construction for the benefit of the citizens of Terrell. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Terrell that 1, City Council instructs the city manager to bring forward for City Council consideration professional service agreements for pre-construction expenses currently estimated at $2 million for the construction of Fire Station number 3. 2, City Council instructs the city manager to bring forward for the City Council consideration professional service agreements for pre-construction expenses currently estimated at $250,000 for the remodel of Fire Station Number 2. If I can get the rest of it here. Number 3, City Council, get my glasses up. City Council instructs the city manager to, I'm sorry.
Bring forward for the city council consideration professional services agreement.
Yeah. City Council instructs the city manager to bring forward for council consideration professional service agreements currently estimated at $1,800,000 for local street reconstruction. 4, City Council instructs the city manager to identify a vacant property of approximately 3 acres suitable for the relocation of Fire Station Number 1. Such land to be subject to City Council approval prior to acquisition and be funded out of the remaining funds from the previously issued Certificates of Obligation Taxable Series 2021A. City Council instructs the city manager not to expend any funds from the 2023C Series Certificates of Obligation, Series 2023C, for an independent fire training facility without specific council authorization. City Council instructs the city manager to bring forward for council consideration a proposal utilizing as many as may be needed a combination of remaining funds from the previously issued Certificates of Obligation Taxable Series 2021A and the proposed new Certificates of Obligation Series 2023C for the Animal Adoption Center rehabilitation. 7, the council instructs the city manager to hold all other potential 2023 series Certificates of Obligation Series 2023 project expenses not listed herein until engineering, architectural, and other professional services identifying priority construction items in sections 1, 2, and 3 are ready for city council consideration, passed and approved by the City Council of the City of Terrell on this, the 22nd day of August, 2023.
All right, thank you, Greg. This is going to be handled by Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, we've talked about this several times, so I won't spend a lot of time on every page of this PowerPoint presentation, but we'll just walk through it here. The first slide tells us the steps in the borrowing process. We've been through these different elements. We've had discussions as part of the 3-year strategic plan and 10-year capital plan. We've moved it all the way through the rating agency review, council review, and then, of course, tonight's an opportunity to take action after the public hearing later in the agenda. The next PowerPoint slide is budget impact. So again, it's $27 million. It's no change to the FY24 tax rate, which is currently listed at 0.6142 M&O, 0.15 INS. That's exactly the same tax rate we have in FY23. The TERS number 1 budget includes an FY24 payment of $400,000 toward this cause, supporting the Apache Trail reconstruction, and the INS number 1 fund balance will reduce from $787 to $159 over the course of the year to help maintain that tax rate. Our review of it is that the city has ample growth, resources, options, agreements with folks to make some impact fee payments to maintain our current tax rate at current levels in future years. We also forecast to have the capacity in TERS number 1 and CD and INS to borrow that additional $8 million in the fall of 2024. So the next slide shows us the rating agency review. Jason Hughes, who's going to present later on, helps us through that process with Moody's and S&P. They've reviewed all of that financial work. They've reviewed the exact same audit that you guys reviewed. That resulted in an affirmation of our current rating of AA3. And S&P's review of the same information, same audit, same list of financial questions that we spent an hour going through with them resulted in an affirmation of the city's current rating of AA-. So the proposed borrowing will not negatively impact the city's credit rating. The next slide is a little tweak on the 10-year capital plan. Since the covenants themselves lump the facilities and the streets together, we thought it was a little bit better to make that clear so you can see that we've made that change. And then, again, no recommendation to the tax rate in FY24 or beyond. And the projects will all be up to City Council discretion. The next slide is that next one that gives you an overview of our FY25 borrowing. Of course, fall of '24 is the start of FY25. The next slide shows you the preliminary spending program. I said this verbally out loud last week, and then we, of course, discussed it in a couple of other meetings over the course of time that we've been working on this. So again, Station 3 estimate $12 million, the inflation contingency there of $3 million, design professional fees, you heard that number in Greg Shumpert's presentation, $2 million, renovation on Station 2, $3 million, and then the $250 that is included in that $3 million for those design fees. Apache Trail estimated $3.8 million, Newton Street estimated at $1.4, and then the local streets engineering package of $1.8 million. And then in fall 2024, an additional $8 million of borrowing to allow us to move forward on all of this for a total of $35 million over this 15-month plan. The next slide is sort of an explanation and clarity on the local street side of it. Our recommended process is to move forward on that $1.8 million for local street engineering. And as you know, we need to engineer what we build. These aren't not maintenance improvements. These are capital improvements. Those capital improvements, they need some serious engineering work to make sure we're doing the subbase of the road correctly and the drainage correctly and all that sort of good stuff. We'd like to get a firm together as soon as possible. We'd like to let that firm help us with the consideration of which streets to include there. And then after council selects a project list to initiate that detailed engineering. And of course, to complete that work in FY24 and bring forward those street improvements so we can get those brought to construction as soon as possible. The next slide is the facility recommendations. This is the same slide you saw during your budget retreat. Again, we want to initiate our pet adoption center remodel as soon as possible. Move forward on the 2 fire station elements. You've even got your architectural firm. We've worked through that process. We've gone through that RFP. Raylan will present that later on in the agenda. And so we are immediately ready with a architect selection tonight for Fire Station 3 and the Fire Station number 2 renovation. We want to hold on the next 3 because those are the ones where while we do know we've got work to do with the state hospital to work on some issues with a new driveway entrance for them. We know that that's going to take some work and some coordination over a period of time with the state hospital. And while we know we'd like to do something with Fire Academy, we do think that we're going to be very mindful of the city council input there of delaying enough so that we really know what our partnership might be with the EDC and with Trinity Valley to do that Fire Academy. Still believe it's a very important priority, but just one we're going to balance over the course of time where we work on the rest of this. And then we'll be holding that Nash Street Park pending feedback from the county. That's the county-owned land that is on Nash. The next PowerPoint slide is just the next steps. So continuing any discussion input from staff, we are going to present those 3 professional service firms over the coming weeks and be ready to go with those so that you guys can move forward very quickly. And then to wrap it up, I think it'd be best to go back to the resolution, if you would please, Dawn. When I go back to the resolution, what I see is that Greg read it, so I won't summarize it too terribly much, but other than to say Resolution 2095 is first and foremost a contingent resolution. It says right there in the very first part of it, it's contingent upon the approval of the COs. So of course it's not effective if there's not a positive vote for the COs. But this is hey, in the event the COs pass, these are the instructions provided to staff. I think it's useful for me as city manager and for all of the staff to have a clear list that we're working on that has the endorsement of the city council. We felt like as we listened to council over the last little while, this was a battle plan that we felt like was not just needed to be on a PowerPoint, but probably best to be in the resolution so it's a clear-cut direction for city staff. So that's my overview of that presentation, and be happy to turn it back to you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sims. Again, this is in response to us and our questions during our process. So does any council member have a question for Mr. Sims regarding the implementation resolution 2095?
Mayor,
Yes.
I mean, we vetted this process quite a bit. And I just like to move that we move on resolution 2095.
Okay. Anybody else? So is that a motion?
Yes, that was a motion.
That
All
would
right.
be to approve Resolution 2095, Councilman?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a second? Mayor will second. So now it's open for discussion. Any discussion?
On page 12, where it talks about, I've always really had concern about the need to move Station 1. It's an old facility, needs a lot of work, and I know that there was a study done a couple of years ago that said we need to move it a little further north, kind of northwest. So that number 4 says that with these funds, we could purchase land for that, because I know there was some overlapping of services, and I'd like I'm concerned, because if that came up 2 years ago, when we look at our plan, 2030, to get that number 1 station, I think that's a long time. It's gonna take a couple of years to build. We're looking 10 years down the road, so is that what that's saying, that with the funding, we can maybe purchase land?
Yes, ma'am. So what I'll do is kind of ask Dawn, flip over just one page if you would, please, so that we can all see that. So you're on item 4, and that instruction is trying to be true to the bond covenants. And so what we did was we went back and said, okay, based on what we did with public advertising said Fire Station 3. So we asked ourselves, wait a minute, if we want to take action to keep all of this process moving forward, but we also have the goal of moving forward on Fire Station number 1, what are our opportunities there? So we saw 2 opportunities. One is that your existing COs, Taxable Series 2021A, includes the ability to use that previously issued city council debt, of which we have adequate resources in 2021A, to make a purchase of 3 acres of vacant land. So we kind of compare that price tag, and we're confident that we would be able to acquire land under the previous 2021A there. Next, it is our firm intent that when we are doing the architectural work for Station 3, our direction to our architectural firm will be to make that a series of plans that we don't just use one time. We don't want to make one set of plans and then throw them away and design a new one a couple of years from now. We want a set of plans, and this will be the clear direction to the architectural firm. Give us a set of plans that are reproducible so that when we are ready to relocate Station 1, we will be able to pick up those same set of plans and use it undoubtedly with some minor modifications, because you always got to retest the soil and that sort of thing. But with minor modifications, be able to use that for repeating for a relocation of Fire Station 1. And just for the sake, I know you know this, Councilwoman, but for the sake of the audience, Station 1 is the one at City Hall, and Station 2 is the one on Baker Street, and their proposal for 3 is the one on Apache Trail. So that's the 1, 2, 3 that gets talked about here.
Okay. Good. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have some significant concerns. So my concern all along has been, I believe we need to have the cost of these projects clearly delineated to us before we borrow this large sum of money.
Okay, so we're talking about the implementation resolution.
Yes, exactly.
This is how we.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting around to.
Okay.
I believe we need to have these costs clearly delineated to us so we understand what's happening. So I think what you're doing here, Mike, you're saying, okay, here's the direction I've received. So I'm trying to kind of outline what the plan is, how we're going to get to what you guys are asking for specifically, correct? Mm-hmm. I commend you in detailing it, but what I'd like to see further than that is a specific, do the work to determine what it's going to cost to build the fire station, what it's going to cost to rebuild Apache Trail, do the engineering work before we borrow the money so we know the costs, or just borrow enough to do the engineering so we know what it's going to cost instead of arbitrarily borrowing $27 million without knowing what these projects are going to cost. That's where I stand currently on the resolution.
All right. Does anybody else have comments, questions? No? I have a motion And I have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. I have a second from the mayor to approve the 2023C implementation resolution.
Mr. Mayor, if you would, ask the city secretary to poll the council individually on this vote.
Would you poll the council, please?
District 2, Grady Simpson.
Yay.
District 3, Mayrani Velazquez.
Aye.
District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas.
Nay.
I'm sorry.
Nay.
Nay.
District 5, Phil Robinson.
Nay.
Mayor Rick Carmona.
Yay. So the motion passes with a 3-2 vote. Next item on the agenda is 7.2. This is to conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding the issuance of sale of City of Terrell, Texas combination tax and waterworks and sewer system limited pledge for revenue certificates of obligation series 2023C. This is Jason Hughes Hilltop Securities. Will be handled by Mr. Hughes. Okay.
Mayor and council, good evening. It's good to be with you. Again, Jason Hughes with Hilltop Securities. You should have in front of you a summary of the sale that we undertook this morning. And if you'll turn, there's a cover page, and then there's a set of pages, 3 pages right after that, that I'll spend the majority of my presentation on. So we did go out into the market this morning. We did conclude the sale. This is obviously subject to your approval. Just as a reminder, this is really the second step in the process. Council approved on June 27th the notice of intent to issue certificates of obligation, and that was put out into the local paper. Within that notice of intent, a maximum principal amount was authorized of $27,500,000. So again, that was the maximum. Mike did allude to this, or Mr. Sims did allude to this, that the credit ratings were affirmed by both S&P and Moody's at a AA- and a AA3. And just as a reminder, Moody's had upgraded the city as recently as February of 2023 this year. So very happy with those credit ratings. I think all things considered, if you continue the path you're on as far as tax base growing, strong financials, and increasingly strong financials, that we would see upward pressure on those credit ratings. But again, very strong credit ratings as they stand now. If you'll turn with me, the final par amount that we're asking for your approval tonight, $27,250,000, and that does produce that full $27 million in project proceeds. The final true interest cost, which is a fixed rate or the average rate, is 4.532%. And I'll just kind of skip down very quickly. The nice thing about that is we came in under what was conveyed to the citizens, to the tune of a little under $1 million. So very happy with that. Certainly, obviously, lower debt service on that, given that true interest cost. One component that we always put in there is a call date. And again, just as a reminder to council, that's simply flexibility that you retain, where if you wanted to refund those, like you'd refinance your home mortgage or even pay that debt off in the future, you again retain that ability to do so. So below there on the sources and uses, again, par amount $27,250,000. We did have a bond premium in there that covered some of the cost of issuance and then again allowed us to generate that full $27 million. If you turn with me to the following page, the debt service page. So as you can see there, we start out in 2024, interest only, and then that principal amount kicks in. These are 30-year bonds, again, a fixed rate on those, so it's not subject to any kind of interest rate risk. Behind tab A, I've included a full set of the numbers. Again, your payments will begin next fiscal year, FY 2024. And then behind tab B, I've included the rating report for both S&P and Moody's. So feel free to look at those at your leisure. But once again, I think you do have very strong credit ratings. I would expect that upward pressure on those ratings. We'd see those ratings increase over time, given everything that you're doing right now. So with that, I'd certainly be happy to answer any kind of questions you may have. Bob Dransfield, the city's bond counsel from Norton Rose Fulbright, is also here and can answer any legal questions you may have.
So how many did we have respond for the bond?
So we actually sold these via a negotiated sale. So we had a number of different buyers that were out there, and I didn't get a final tally of that, but I can certainly get that and get that to Mr. Sims.
I mean, it just goes to show that the strength and the ability of the city to pay back is good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was no shortage of buyers, and in fact, the nice thing is, if you turn with me just very quickly, Mayor, on that second page that I went through where it shows that 918,000. At the start of this morning, I think that number, if I remember correctly, was about 580,000. We had enough buyers come in, there was enough interest, especially on the long end, that we were actually able to lower the yields down, i.e. get better.
Yep.
And that's why you see that number went from 580 to roughly 920.
Right.
So.
And this is a good, and what I don't want is the mayor, I can see it and read it and know that this looks to be very favorable for the city, for the borough.
I think it's very favorable. I think, again, we beat the projections that we put out to our citizens. I think we have, both rating agencies have come in, they have looked at this. They know that you do have some needs, as Mr. Sims outlined, because you're a growing city. And so even factoring those things in there, you still have high credit ratings in the second highest category. So yes, I think that's very good.
And we're in a position that some municipalities and governments aren't in, that we're able to buy down or lower that rate.
Yes, sir.
We went out to market. So
Yes, sir.
thank you for your service and your hard work. Does anybody have any questions on the certificates of obligations for Jason?
Just real quickly, I know, the credit challenges, below average income and dependence on economically sensitive sales tax revenues. The factors that could lead to upgrade with that, such as the strengthened income and wealth matrix, could that help the credit challenges?
So it does. So just very quickly, there's 4 main categories that go into that credit rating for your GO credit, and that's the local economy, and that takes into account your taxable assessed valuation, things of that nature. Generally speaking, that's the one area that you don't have any control over, or very little control. Finances, which you've done a very good job to rebuild your financial house, if you will, or strengthen it, I should say, not rebuild it. Debt and pension, and then the 4th one is management. And so that's, if you recall, back in 2021, we put in place some different policies, and those are subject to council review on an annual basis, so those things help strengthen that. So yes, there are some areas that strictly within Moody's and S&P and how they rate you, they consider weaker on a national basis. There's other areas that are considered much stronger, and again, that's what rises.
Because you're performing good in other areas.
Yes, sir, and that's what raises it up to that AA level credit ratings.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My question, and it may be, might even be for counsel here, legal counsel, but Jason, for the August 15th of 2033 callable date,
Yes.
should we want to pay off those loans at the COs sooner, or refinance as you refinance
Yes, ma'am.
a house? Is that a future council vote, or would the city manager or policy just move forward with making that decision?
So yes, in order to pay off debt, in order to expend funds to pay off debt, it would take a full council vote. So that would absolutely have to be brought before council.
Absolutely.
As would any kind of refinancing, because we'd be issuing bonds again, so that would be subject to council vote.
Thank you for the clarification.
Certainly.
Okay. Any further questions, or does anybody have any questions on the report? Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
So this is item 7.3, or 7.2, is this a?
Public
This
hearing.
is a public hearing, so at this time, we will open the public hearing to receive comments regarding issuance and sale of the City of Terrell, Texas Combination Tax and Waterworks and Sewer System Limited Pledge of Revenue Certificates of Obligation, Series 2023C. Is there anyone to speak on this matter? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and move on to item 7.3. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, now that I have my screen up and I can read, bring to you tonight ordinance number 3005, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of City of Terrell, Texas Combination Tax and Waterworks and Sewer System Limited Pledge Revenue Certificates of Obligation, Series 2023C, specifying the terms and features of said certificates, providing for the payment of said certificates of obligation by the levy of an ad valorem tax upon all taxable property within the city, and a limited pledge of the net reserves derived from the operation of the city's waterworks and sewer systems, providing the terms and features of such certificates, and resolving other matters instant and relating to the issuance, payment, security, sale, and delivery of said certificates, including the approval and execution of a paying agent register agreement and a purchase agreement, and the approval and distribution of an official statement pertaining thereto, and providing an effective date. This comes to you tonight on first reading.
All right, does anybody have any questions? Motion.
Yes, Mayor, motion to approve ordinance 3005.
To approve?
Is that approval?
Approved, yes.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, to approve Resolution 3005 as presented.
Again, Mr. Mayor, I would recommend the polling of the council on this.
Got discussion first.
Oh, I'm
Is there
sorry.
any
Excuse
further
me.
discussion? Hearing none, would we please poll the council?
District 2, Grady Simpson.
Yay.
District 3, Mayrani Velasquez.
Aye.
District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas.
Nay.
District 5, Phil Robinson. Mayor Rick Carmona.
Yay. The motion passes 3-2. Next on the agenda is 7.4, discuss contract recommendation for RFQ 23-02 Architectural Services, new construction and renovation of city-owned facilities. This is going to be handled by Raylan Smith.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Bring to you tonight a resolution for your consideration authorizing the City Council, the City of Terrell, to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute contracts for architectural design services. You'll note in Section 2 that it does spell out that each individual task order would be brought back to the City Council for individual projects as stated in the previous resolution. We would look at architectural services for Fire Station number 3, Fire Station number 2, as well as the Pet Adoption Center. Those would be the first 3 that we would bring back to you.
And so does anybody have any questions for Raylan? I think that you presented this last week.
Yes.
And this was the WRA architecture firm, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Raylan? Hearing none, thank you. So this is a discussion. Is this a discuss and consider?
Discuss, yes, discuss.
Okay.
Discuss contract recommendation.
So is there a motion to?
I believe this is just a discussion area, Mr. Mayor.
It's a discussion only?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so I guess this will come back to us next week. Got it? Next item on the agenda is 8.1, discuss and consider Planning and Zoning Commission appointment and reappointment. This is going to be Don Style.
Mayor and council, in your packet is the planning and zoning roster, and there are several applications in there. Let me get to that item here. Sorry. Joe Hood has termed out, and he needs to be replaced. We have several applications that were in the packet for review, and this falls under Mayrani Velasquez.
Okay. Councilwoman, do you have a recommendation, or?
I will be moving forward.
Okay.
With a recommendation. At this time, I move to appoint Matthew Malone, also known as Matt Malone, to replace Joe Hood as a commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay. Is that your recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Phil Robinson, District 5, to approve the appointment of Matt Malone. Is there any further discussion? To the Planning and Zoning Commission. Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
I would like to say, Mayor, that we're looking forward to having Matt Malone's strong board governance on the Planning and Zoning Board. I think we have a newer group of folks on planning and zoning. And I will say that I've also reached out to some of the applicants here and encouraged them to apply for additional boards and continue to be involved with the city, because I think there's certainly an opportunity for those individuals and those that are listening online, or if you know a friend, to submit an online application to serve on one of our other city boards.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I do want to say, for all of the council, I like the direction that y'all are going with your board representation, and thank you for your hard work, and I know it's extra, but we need to get good people who want to be involved on these boards. It's important for the city, so good job. I have a motion and a second to approve Matt Malone to the P&Z board. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be.
I'd just like to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think Matt's going to be a great addition to the board. I think he's going to bring some fresh ideas. He's been a big contributor downtown, so just I want to welcome Matt to the board as well.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? No? All right, so motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is discuss Terrell Chamber of Commerce presentation. This is going to be done by Carlton Tidwell, and he'll limp up here, I think, right? Did you get good news? I hope you got good news that.
For many years of officiating, I
Too many years of running up down a football field, no doubt, with Mr. Shaw.
This is Main Street.
So, thank you. It'll all be relieved on September the 5th.
Okay.
So thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to be here today. I do have a short video for you in just a moment, but we just wanted to go over some of the things that we're using to bring people to Terrell. And just wanted to let you know that our partnership is, we believe, a great one, and we hope that you continue to believe that as well. What you'll see today is from Main Street Reborn. They are part of Expedition Texas. Expedition Texas has been here as well to do stories on the British Flying Training School Museum, as well as Ham's Orchard. That's a 30-minute segment that runs statewide. And Main Street Reborn does short clips on some of our downtown businesses. And what you'll see in this video, about the first 30 to 45 seconds of it, you'll have the audio with it to see kind of how it goes. And then you'll see a number of businesses that were included in that. So go ahead. Thank you.
Street Reborn, the show about the people and the businesses that are bringing Main Street back. This is Main Street Reborn, the show about the people and the businesses that are bringing Main Street back to life. Historic buildings line Moore Avenue in Terrell, Texas. Unless a downtown building is a retail space open to the public, what's happening inside is sometimes a mystery. That's the case with 119 East Moore. But today we're opening the doors and inviting you inside for a surprising look at the French Soiree with owner Christina McDaniel.
I'm Christina McDaniel, owner of the French Soiree in Terrell, Texas. What brought me here to this building in Terrell, Texas was we were one day driving to Canton, passing by through downtown Terrell, and I'm in love with old buildings. So we looked this one up, it was on sale, and we bought it.
Just what is the French Soiree? Well, it's different things to different people.
I had always envisioned to open up a wedding venue and a photography studio. So when I saw this building, it had everything. It didn't look like it looks today, but it had the windows, the space, and it was in a great location, and the architecture of the building itself, the outside was just what I fell in love with.
Oh, another one of those businesses, Bardow Games and Gritty Bell both will come online, and one of those came online this weekend. So you can see it again if you follow Terrell Chamber of Commerce on Facebook. You'll be able to see Main Street Reborn with that business. We also developed a video about shopping local that we play at Film Alley, between 2 to 6 minutes before every movie starts. And so that goes through Pot of Gold Productions, and that helps because, as you know, people that come to Film Alley aren't always from Terrell, and they don't always know a lot about Terrell. And so we want to make sure that when they leave there, if they have time, that they can come downtown and shop, because there'll be places available for them to go. A couple other things that I just wanted to talk to you about was our multi-view geofencing that we do. For those that are familiar with geofencing, we capture cell phones as they come into the crossroads and as they go to First Monday Canton. First Monday Canton shoppers seem to be the type shoppers that love small town America shops. And so we want to make sure and capture those. But we also know that the crossroads captures a lot of people. I mean, with 60,000 cars a day plus going down Interstate 20, we know that we want to stop them there as well. And we get 820,000 impressions a year on that, of people seeing an ad to come to historic downtown Terrell. And so that is a pretty phenomenal rate of a lot of people looking. Now, an impression is when that ad comes up on your phone, and if you're like me, I'm not quick enough to go, oh, wait, touch it, but I saw it, and I don't always want the ad to come up, but I saw it, and I may want to go down and see what's going on. So 820,000 impressions a year there. The top performer was in February, First Monday, where we had 20,000 impressions just in First Monday of people capturing them to come to Terrell to shop downtown. Another item I wanted to bring up that's really fairly new is we have gone to school to become a film-friendly community. Many of you know, a lot of you have been here a long time. It goes back to the Walker, Texas Ranger days when some of that show was filmed here, but we've had 6 motion pictures filmed here. M. Legend Brown has done 5. There was another horror picture done here that I will never see, simply because of its category. But it was used, the Anderson Building was used for that. We want to become a film-friendly city. We have developed a contract that film producers will use. We'll work with city staff when we get that finished. So when if they want to rent a building, if they need security, whatever they need, they can come to the city and get that information that they need. Now, the great thing about that is you don't have to pay film producers to come here, because the state of Texas does this. The state of Texas will incentivize people to come here, and when they do, they are required through that incentive to spend 70% of that money on cast members within the state of Texas, and 60% of that money within the community they're in, buying goods and services. Now, I got to tell you something. If they come here to shoot some scenes, our hardware stores, paint stores, restaurants, grocery stores, they're all going to love that. So that's another idea that we've started. We're working on it. And again, that contract, Mr. Sims and I have already talked about it. And we just need to finalize some things before it comes to council, and you can see how that will work. Just an idea of what goes on statewide with the movie industry and commercials. $1.95 billion in spending from the movie industry in the state of Texas has created 183,000 jobs. So it's getting bigger. And so we look forward to getting a small part of that. Just a couple other things, and then I'll be done. The Texas Downtown Group, we are a member of in the state of Texas, working with Raylan Smith and Allison Walker. We have looked at doing an assessment with these downtown experts where they will bring people from around the state of Texas that will look at your downtown and assess it and say, look, hey, here's some ideas. And you know, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. And it's always good to have somebody from the outside come in and look. So we're looking at that. And also we have looked at sports tourism. And we have done, asked for a proposal on that. And that'll be a little further down the road. Obviously, facilities are very important with that. And so we'll have to discuss needs that some major tournaments would have to bring all of their athletes to Terrell, fill our hotels and our restaurants and have their sporting events here. So that's just a very quick synopsis of what's going on the Convention and Visitors Bureau side of the Terrell Chamber. We appreciate the partnership very much. We know that you as a council have discussed a TERS agreement. We look forward to being a partner with that as well. And thank you very much for your confidence in us to help our downtown grow.
So, Mayor and Council, just to kind of tag on to the end of that, thank you for that transition. Right now, your draft tax increment refinance zone number 1 budget has $50,000 in additional downtown advertising proposed. As you see them percolate on that and work through that process, the TERS will ultimately, we think, be making a recommendation along those lines to you. So you'll see that when it comes to you, because those TERS monies can't be spent until A, the City Council votes to put in the budget, and B, a agreement between the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Terrell gets worked out on that. That's above and beyond standard Convention and Visitors Bureau funding through the hotel occupancy tax, which is a different contract with the Chamber of Commerce. So just a little clarity on process there.
Okay, thank you very much. And one last thing, if I may, Mayor. We received this, I'm going to call it a piece of history, and I'd like to have your patience and read this. It's a letter sent to Mr. Bryce Wisner in Mineola, Texas. Dear Mr. Wisner, the Terrell Chamber of Commerce and the people of Terrell were highly pleased with your aerial contribution to our pre-Christmas festival last Thursday afternoon. We certainly appreciate the manner in which you handled your part of the program. Many have told us that the largest crowd came to Terrell that afternoon and evening that had been here in many years at one time. We certainly commend you for your fair dealings in every respect and wishing you every success. Respectfully yours, it was signed by Homer L. Massey, Secretary of the Terrell Chamber of Commerce, and that was dated December 11th, 1933. So that's 90 years of bringing people to Terrell to help with us to grow this community. So thank you again, Mayor and Council.
Yeah, before you exit, I just want the council to recognize the fact that we have a very active chamber in the city. The Terrell Chamber of Commerce does a lot for this community, for its membership, but also putting Terrell in a good light with visitors that come to Terrell. So on my behalf, I'd like to say thank you, Calder, for your hard work and dedication to the city. And it takes all of us working and pulling together to get things accomplished. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Carlton?
I do have a question, Carlton, for the contract for film producers needing to rent a building, security. Will that contract also include if a film producer comes and films at a local home that's not owned by a business?
It can, yes.
It can?
Yes. And that's some of the things that we need to work through, because we're new at this. We didn't recreate the wheel when we got this. We took a contract from a city that's already in the film business and tried to make it ours. And so, sure, if we want to do it at the Velasquez home, that would be great. If you want to rent that out. But yeah, and there also, can be private agreements made outside of the city agreement as well. This agreement really is about public buildings, police protection, closing streets, using public property or something like that. So that's really what this agreement would be if, we have anybody ask for that, and what the price would be to do that.
Sure, and the reason I ask is because just this Saturday, again, I think we need to make sure that you're aware and extend the invitation. a film producer that received one of the up-and-coming, not going to try to claim to be a film, just knowledgeable about films and awards, but had received an award and filmed once, and a couple of us were extras at the Cartwright House, and they're coming back on Saturday to film. So I think it would be a great idea for you and or any of your staff to come see that if possible, and see if there's any additional direction that we could take, because I think going along the lines of showcasing Terrell in a positive light, and
Sure.
as we attract individuals to our community, those dollars that it expends here help level off some of the tax dollars that our own property owners are also helping to contribute to the overall city budget.
Be happy to do that. Just need to know what time on Saturday they'll be there, so.
Well, 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, very good. All right.
Carlton, she's bashful, but she was one of the principal extras in that film, along with my wife and many others. And they were up until 3 o'clock in the morning making that film, I will tell you. I know, because I didn't sleep any that night.
All right. Anyone else? Carlton, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. Next on the agenda is item 9.2, discuss 2023-24 draft budget. This is our city manager, Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, this is a review of some topics that we have talked about, and this is basically your city manager trying to follow up on requests I've had for some feedback, as well as look for any additional council input. This is the page that I showed you during our FY24 budget retreat back in early August. I won't read any of it to you, but I'll just say we've received input from council on many of these points, and we're trying to work through this direction of getting some of these questions answered and these policies taken care of. I think 5 would be an example of one where we've definitely heard council loud and clear of, hey, is there a way to make that Rochester drainage improvement less expensive, thereby opening up more money for additional small capital drainage projects? And so we're off on the engineering side of things, trying to figure out, okay, what could we do there to try to make that balance a little bit more in the favor of the small capital projects. That's work in progress, but many of these are things where we're obviously working more and more toward the decision-making side of it. So again, any input you've got, happy to get it. So I'll go quickly, Mayor, through some of this, and we'll just kind of skip the schedule. Y'all know what the schedule is. The next slide, if you would, Dawn. Balanced budget, right now we're at 41.957 on revenues and 41.952 on expenses. We've been growing our fund balance over the last few years. Every other year I've proposed a budget, we had hundreds of thousands of dollars in the gap between revenues and expenditures, so that we were putting money away every year. And this particular year is the first one where I feel like we're comfortable enough on where we stand to have a break-even year. The next slide is the streets issue. I consider this a great success in our proposed budget to you, where we're able to take the overall amount of money for pay-as-you-go street projects from $3 million to $3.5 million. That's a $488,000 increase, and what is available for our summer road project. You've heard me say several times, this year's summer road project is just about $1.6 million, and next year we'll have a little bit over $1.9 million. Some people who are elected officials in the council, or elected officials who are in the chamber out here, who were on council back when I first started as assistant city manager, we would have loved to have this kind of money for local streets in 2008, and it just wasn't financially viable for the city. And to have been on this road to get there, a lot of hands played a strong part in that. Glenn Caldwell's to be thanked, and really always got to thank my first mayor here. So Mayor, I appreciate you being out here and watching over us here. So next slide is fees and revenues. I won't beat this up too much other than to say, here's our calculation about the average utility bill for next year. I flashed this up on the screen quickly last time. The stormwater vote, the solid waste one is the one where we have already voted. Water and wastewater are ones where we will vote in just a few weeks. Stormwater, we will vote in a few weeks. I'll talk about that a little bit. and CareFlight is unchanged this time around. I did highlight last time that we are trying very hard to work with the North Texas Municipal Water District to bring that 8.5% increase on water down a little bit lower. And Mike McKeska and I were just talking today about how much lower than 8.5 we might get. And I realize this won't sound like much, but we're talking about, gosh, can we get that down to 8.25? Can we get that down to a flat 8? That doesn't sound very encouraging, but I'd like to just get it as low as I possibly can afford, given the fact that North Texas Municipal Water District started us off with an 11.5% increase, and that's system-wide for them. The next slide is stormwater. I don't intend to really beat this up tonight, although I'm happy to take council input on it. It's our recommendation that in order to get to the point where we can issue debt off of this fund, we've really got to grow up to the point where we're getting $13.65 as our stormwater rate. And our request by staff this year is to say, let's just go ahead and put a multi-year plan in place and pass a multi-year drainage ordinance. We do that in our other funds from time to time. We've always done that in our impact fee fund. I'd like to approach this strategy from that point of view this time around, and you can see that phasing in of a higher drainage fee from the staff proposal, and I'll need some city council input on that as we move on through this process. I won't go through the next couple of slides, but that's the background research on our major payers. The next one is the pie chart that shows who pays what, 54.9% by commercial industrial. Why does the city pay so much? Well, we love our airport, but our airport's got a lot of concrete, and it has to pay its fair share of the fees too. That's a state law issue with who pays those fees. Next slide is next steps. Talked about this last time, so you guys are familiar with that schedule. Next slide is just a recap of labor, and so I'll skip these since that's the FY23 stuff. We talked about this last time, and then we get to our FY24. So here was our base recommendation, and this base recommendation is what's in your budget today. So when I showed you that balanced budget, the balanced budget includes uniform police and fire, a total 7.5% take-home increase. They get a 2.5% step on their anniversary, and a 5% adjustment on November the 15th. We do have a small number of topped-out police and fire. That means they've reached the top level of their particular step. Maybe they're a driver in the fire department who has been there long enough to be at the top step. That person typically can't go anywhere because they've reached the top of the pay plan. We feel like a one-time payment to those employees of 2.5% on their anniversary date is the right solution to that, so we're not leaving them with absolutely no benefit. Civilian employees, a 5% overall take-home increase. That's a 2.5% step on November 15th and a 2.5% adjustment on November 15th as well. So those are the basics there. You can read the rest of the stuff on the slide. The next slide goes over to some of the other highlights. We are adding 2 officers in the police department. I've been saying this for months and months. This was our #1 most important thing that we wanted to get done in this year's budget from a staff recommendation point of view, and it is in there. Last year we had partial funding for an assistant city manager. This time it's full funding. We actually are scheduling some interviews along those lines. And then the policy analyst to free up Allison's time. And then we've got some contract labor in there in sanitation, which is $10,000, animal control $50,000, and municipal court of $50,000. That allows us to meet some immediate needs, and we're just going to have to phase in the permanent staff associated with those positions. Very satisfied with that. And we're adding an engineer and some operations staff in the utility department. All of that is in the base budget recommendation from staff. The next slide is labor cost by fund. The next slide is where we start getting into, here's the labor cost overall. So the base budget is a $1.787 million net increase in labor costs. That's an 8.6% increase overall. The next slide is the police department. Here's their current salary structure. And then if you flip over one page, it's the proposed salary structure for next time. This is the across-the-board 5% increase in every item with an additional fix up there on the police cadet side. We feel like it'd do a better job recruiting the police cadet position if we don't leave it with only a 5% increase. You go back one, you can see right now when we look at competing cities, if I took that 57,915 and I only increased that by 5%, we're not going to do as good a job recruiting people because it's that snazzy, what's my very first pay the very first day? Even if I have to send them to go get their TCLOS certification on day one, and they're in training for all that time, other police departments are starting their employees closer to their police officer step one. So we just have to make a bigger increase in the cadet side of it. So the only change from last time I showed you the PowerPoint slide, go to the next slide. I'm sorry, the FY24 one, go forward, there you go. Yeah, the only change from the last time you saw this was for the change in the police cadet side of it. Now there's only a 2.5% increase between police cadet and police officer, and that gets us a little bit more competitive on the recruitment side. Other than that, that PowerPoint slide is unchanged, and it's all 5% increases. Obviously, your average police officer will go also up one step, and that puts a 7.5% increase in their pocket. Next PowerPoint slide is fire department. So here's what it currently is in the current pay plan. The next PowerPoint slide was the original staff recommendation for November 15th. And again, this was just a 5% across the board. We had more than one council person raise their hand and say, hey, I'm concerned about that because maybe it's the firefighters who need to do a little bit more catching up than anyone else in the organization. And we also have this pending issue of, well, if we're going to be adding additional firefighters to staff fire station number 3, do we really want to be out recruiting for all those additional firefighters, first 10 in FY24 and then an additional 5 in FY25? Do we really want to be out there recruiting with the pay levels here that we would put in place for November 15th? And I said, you know what, that's a lot of smarts in that recommendation. So we went to work and we retooled a little bit. And so the next PowerPoint slide, if I got it here, there you go, is an idea. And this is not funded, okay? So I like to be really clear about what's not in the base budget. This slide is not in the base budget. This is a effort to be responsive to council, and it's an effort to say, you know what, if we're going to do that recruiting, we need to be in a little bit better of a position. So in this case, we've taken, again, same thing I mentioned in the police department side of it, that base entry salary, maybe it just needs to look more competitive for the people we're trying to recruit. I'd like to say I could get it higher than 62, but I think 62 is about where I might be able to find funding for this thing if we beat up some funding options later on. And then what's another difference? So go back and forth for a minute between the two slides, if you will, Don. Here on the 15th, I got you at $58,000. That's a 5% increase for my step 1 firefighter, okay? And notice that the percentage between the steps starts at a 9%. So that means I'm here for 6 months, and then boom, I get a 9% raise, and then we're off and running with those 4.5% increases, okay? That's how you read that. Each one of those, the 1, 2 is 1 is 6 months, 2 is 6 months, they're orange, and then after that, they're all a year to get from one step to the next step. So in this particular case, I'm going from 58 up to 63. And so the only thing we've really changed on this next PowerPoint slide is all of the percentage increases are the same, except what we did was to say, you know what, because maybe 62 is where we'd rather do recruiting, let's put it at 62 for the step 1 firefighter. Let that employee be in the organization at $62,000 for 6 months. And then instead of having a big flashy 9%, let's just calm that down and be at 4.5%. And the net of what that means, by the way, if you're keeping score, is it means that the average firefighter, most firefighters, will get a 7.5% overall, quote, market increase plus their 2.5% step. So if the staff is able to find and council is willing to endorse this February 1, 2024 pay plan, we would say, okay, That means that instead of the average firefighter walking away with 7.5% more in this year, it will instead be 10% more. And so we felt like that was a effort that I might be able to find some revenue for, and I think it's a pay plan that will do us a lot better in the recruiting element of adding those new firefighters for the new fire station. We have some data that Chief LaCroix has gathered for us that I didn't put in the PowerPoint slide tonight because I'm already giving you information overload, but we will send it out to everybody. We'll put it on the website, and it basically shows you how that makes us competitive against some comparison cities. I think that's a great vantage point as well, and we want to show you that to see where we stand there. I'll tell you what we found also is that no matter how we stack up against people on how their salary structure was last year, which is the data that's easy to get, all of the cities that we're talking to are talking about raises for firefighters. And so you got to be mindful that it's easy for me to show you data that says here's what is publicly available today, but if all of those other city councils are having the exact same conversation you are, you're going to expect that those numbers will change, and they'll all change in October, or some of them will be phasing in their pay plans on the January 1st. Some will phase in their pay plans on different other dates. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I'm going to roll through a couple other slides here. This one is unchanged. That's our current FY23, groups 5 through 11. That's custodian through pre-treatment coordinator. The next slide is FY24, same group. 2.5% increase for all of those from a market standpoint, plus everybody gets up from step 1 or whichever step they're on to the next step. So that's the net 5% increase for them. That's how that works. The next PowerPoint slide is the groups 5 through 38. So that's animal control supervisor all the way through assistant city manager. The next one is FY24. So again, same math on there. That PowerPoint slide is unchanged from the last time you saw it. Next slide is a little bit of the summary. So this is the summary without the fire department alternative, okay? This is the same one you saw last time, and what I'm going to show you next is how much it adds to this. So right now, labor cost 8.6% higher in the general fund. Next PowerPoint slide is sort of where I want to summarize the impacts of input I've heard thus far. And impacts, this is from staff going through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and this is from city council input. So if we were to do that February PowerPoint slide that I showed you, then it will cost us $175,000 more, and that's an annualized cost, which is the way we need to budget for it. And then we heard also that in streets and in parks, Mr. Caldwell, sitting dutifully out in the audience here, he requested additional staff in streets and in parks. We didn't feel like that was necessarily affordable in this year's budget, but we did come up with the idea of, well, let's at least give Glenn some contract labor assistance. If I can't fund an entire maintenance worker position, let's at least get some flexibility in there. So if he needs to hire some folks, we can flex that dollar to overtime. We can flex that dollar to contract labor if necessary, or maybe we can find a contractor to come in there and get a job done. Having those additional funds in streets and parks would be important for us. We had a really good in-house meeting. This may not be exciting to everybody in the room, but we had an in-house meeting on how do we handle custodial work at the police department. It's really a special issue because you've got to make sure that you've got security clearance for police department cleaners, right? So this becomes a difficult thing to contract. We've had this conversation a couple of times about, well, usually we can save money by contracting because that's a labor cost savings. We're not paying an insurance cost, we're not paying a retirement cost, we're contracting, and that contract employee is a less expensive thing for us. On the other hand, if you got to get them through a security clearance, then maybe that's not the best strategy. So our feeling is that instead of struggling constantly to find a good contractor at a reasonable price, maybe the better thing is that we need to add enough money to the budget to do 2 new city part-time employees. I put the word net on this slide because right now we budget $30,000 to clean the police department. That's woefully underfunded. The lowest bid we have on cleaning the police department next year is $105,000. But we think that 2 city employees who would be part-time janitorial staff would be around $90,000. So that's the net $60,000. We take 30 out of the contract side and add that 30 plus the 60 in, and that would get us the 2 city part-time employees there. That's a total added cost over the base budget of $285,000. Now, I'm going to tell you that that dollar amount represents revenue stuff that you would not like if I proposed. So I can tell you that that's about a 1.8 cent maintenance and operation tax rate increase. Not going to propose that. We could go try to find fees to charge. I think we're all done with where we can do on fees because we listen to those people we charge fees to. I'm not going to recommend any additional fee increases, but we really got to get serious about how do we figure out the revenues, cost-cutting options, other things. I had a good meeting with Shelley today. I think I might be able to find a revenue solution for this, but I'm not quite sure right now, so I'm not going to unveil some big proposal. But part of the reason I wanted to show this is it's really very important to staff because we're really getting closer and closer to voting on the budget. If there's anything else in the budget that folks are nervous about or have concern about, I think we hit all the high points. We put additional money into streets, tried to take care of all of the labor issues that we talked about. That was the feedback I got during budget retreat time. I know Shelley and I owe you a updated. We handed you one version of a line item budget. We're about to hand you another version of a line item budget. But right now, this is my problem. This is what we're working on, and this is what I need some discussion on. So I'm going to go back to the fire department slide that was the February one. And Mayor, I'm just going to take a pause there because what I'd like to do is to just listen to some input on this particular point. You heard my reasons for thinking that we'd like to try to get this done, and a little uncertainty from me on affordability, but with that, I'll take a pause, sir.
Okay. Well, so what I'd like for us to do is try to find a balance in our employees and how we approach our staffing, but I certainly understand the need to be competitive. I'm a little bit concerned when we hear the term unfunded. In other words, I don't want us to get our hopes up too high. I think Mike, generally, in the past, when we've given him a challenge to go out and find the money to accomplish the goals of the council, he's worked very hard, and it's been, he and his staff has been receptive to our request. So, you know, we have a lot of wants, we have some needs, and I'll just open it up to the council for questions for Mike, and if you have any comments, go ahead, Councilman.
I've got a couple of questions. So, Mike, you and I have discussed this quite a bit, this salary increase and the need for it. We heard a presentation during the budget discussions from the police department explaining that, you know, that when they had the salary increase, it was 10% across the board. It revolutionized the recruiting. You know, they were able to staff properly, and their department greatly benefited from it. And I think we'd see the same result, you know, from the fire department, considering currently, you know, their base pay is $55K, and across the board, everyone else is, you know, 62, 63, 67. So it's going to be hard to attract a qualified applicant, and as we've seen in recent hiring processes, without making this raise happen. At very least, this raise. To me, 62 is kind of the bottom end of what's competitive if we're going to recruit properly. So I would very much like to see it. I would actually like to hear some feedback from Chief LaCroix. Chief, would you mind offering your feedback? Do you think the 62,000 base entry-level salary would benefit you in terms of recruiting?
Chief, come up to the mic because we want you to be able to be heard.
Yeah, I believe any movement that we can make forward is going to help us, you know, to get more competitive with the surrounding agencies. So
Okay.
You know, moving to the 62, you know, that, again, it's going to look better to these individuals, and you take that along with some of the education certification that we're offering. All that's going to help, you know, be a recruitment tool for us.
Okay. So when a new applicant is looking to see where they want to work, what city, a lot of times, a lot of their initial concern is what is it going to pay, and they're going to look at that entry-level pay, correct? So that's kind of one of your key recruiting tools is that entry-level pay, what it's going to pay when they get hired on, a lot of times, right? So getting that where it needs to be, I think, is pretty key. One thing I wanted to mention as well, you know, we're talking about being able to get the funding, the $285,000 to do that. I've seen us approve a park bathroom recently for $350,000. You know what I mean? I think that we can probably find for one of our most important matters some funding somewhere, you know, to make this happen for these guys.
So
That's
I
my
think,
opinion.
yeah, I agree with you. Look, staff's always stepped up to the challenge, right? But I think the bathrooms, were they funded from the Paddock Board?
That's a Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation, so that's,
A little bit different, but I understand, that's a good
It does
point.
come out,
I
not
know what
everything's
you're
out
saying.
of the same bucket.
Yes.
My point is, we
Yes.
can find some money for what's most important, I think,
Yeah.
hopefully.
I agree, or we can push,
Yeah.
we can push our staff.
Yeah.
If it's a priority for us, and I mean all of us, if it's a priority for us, we can push our staff in that direction to come back with the money, okay?
What I would also share that we've done, what we've done in the past as well in terms of increasing salaries is, you know, a commitment from council to review, if we're saying January 2024, if that means a December vote to implement a new pay scale in January, then we agreed to come back at a specific time frame and allow staff to be able to do the research and see where they could find some funding. You know, we have approved funding, borrowing for those new fire station facilities. I know we need staffing at this time, currently at this time for our current fire stations. And then I also believe that it's you know, it's not just salary. I think there's a multi-layered approach that we also heard from the police department on changes they've made internally and different, you know, diversity in recruitment, kind of where you're sourcing your applicants that contributes to getting those staff members in. Not saying it's going to make the quickest move, right? Because everybody, whether it's in the public sector or non-public sector, is struggling in terms of staffing across the board. But I would like to support making sure that we can staff those new fire stations and support the current needs at this time. And I would also be comfortable with giving staff some time to come back and you know, coming to a council agreement to review in a different pay scale to implement in the January timeframe.
so just as a process clarification, the civil service ordinance that we pass, what we've done when we want to phase something like that in is that, remember, you have to pass that ordinance every year. And so right around the time we're adopting the budget, we're also bringing forward a civil service ordinance. Your civil service ordinance can certainly be written to say, here's the schedule of salaries for police and fire that are effective on November 15th. And then here's this additional pay schedule for fire that would be in place on February 1st, 2024. That all can be in one ordinance because the ordinance itself can just have that language in it. And that's just to be clear, that's the staff direction we would go. If we get positive feedback from council on this, I'll go to work on the revenue side of it to figure out how to pay for it. And then mechanically, we would bring it forward in a single ordinance.
And I also want to add, thank you, Chief, for providing that information. I'm switching here to parks and streets, and I'm glad to see that we included some contract labor for parks and streets. As we know, streets is one of the top concerns, along with public safety, that our community members reach out to us about. And whether it's, driving on streets every day or visiting the different parks in our community, I get to see those contractors working and community members asking for streets improvements. And I even get to see our staff and contractors working on the weekends or early mornings before some of our 8 a.m. shift folks are working. So I think we need to be able to support that contract labor and hopefully can work towards a different model that can support the needs of our community.
Yes, Mayor, I'd just like to say that when it comes to our fire and police department, it's a huge priority with me. And I know that we bring this up every year about having to give our fire and police officers more, but each and every year, we're going to climb a mountain, and that mountain is going to be the bottom of another mountain. And so we always have to keep thinking about how we're going to move forward, how we're going to move the needle on this, because the city of Terrell, as we know, is growing, and they're coming. And there's no country, there's no town, no city that does not have, that couldn't survive without an adequate first responder unit. So to me, it's a priority, and I'd like for us, Mr. Sims and the staff and the council to really take this seriously so we can move the needle on this, not just do it for this fiscal year, but continue to be creative in developing a plan to keep moving the needle on it. I know we can't maybe pay as much as a Plano, but man, we can be competitive. We can be competitive. We can make it happen. We achieved a lot as a city, and I think we can continue to evolve and grow as our cities grow. We're going to need our police force and our fire department properly staffed, period. It just can't be an if. It has to be when and how we're going to do it.
Thank you.
All right, I just want to say public safety, public safety, public safety. Fire and police gonna get the money. We can look at our diagrams. They're gonna get the money. That's where the money goes when it comes to public safety. Just in general, when I look at the labor spreadsheet, I just want to make sure that we treat our people that's here now well. We want to treat them well. That's how we're going to get more people here. We need to treat our staff well. So I have no question. I do support taking care of the police and fire based on public safety. But I'm looking at slide 28. I got a couple questions about that, if we can move on, or do we need to belabor the fire chief? If you look on 28, the front office staff, that one, it looked like there's an increase of 96,000. That's gonna fully fund the assistant city manager and that analyst. That seems like the numbers are not.
So, two things that are happening there is your FY23 budget had an estimated, I think we did 8 months of a assistant city manager. So since I'm only keeping track of the increase, that's part of it. Also, remember, I have some contract labor in the front office that we use for projects from time to time, and you've seen a couple of consultants working for me. So we're collapsing that and taking that out of the budget. And then when you net all of that together is how we end up with the net part of that. So it's a net change, yeah.
Okay. Then when I look at the other changes, some of those numbers are so nominal. What are the other staff, what are we doing for our other staff members that's not specifically in public safety? I mean, I think a lot of these positions do assist with that when I look at animal control and a few of these others, but are we adjusting, what is the adjustment on those?
So if you're not police or fire, then what's happening is, and I'm sorry, I'll correct myself there. If you're not a sworn police officer or a firefighter or a 911 operator, remember the 911 operators we discussed previously, they're getting about a 10% increase. The other civilian staff, so the remaining civilian staff are all getting on October 1st a 2.5% market increase plus a 2.5% step increase. So all of the standard folks who are civilian folks are getting a 5% increase effective on effective on November the 15th, pardon me. Effective November 15th, all of those folks are getting a 5% in take-home.
And is that included here, or is it in some of that shift into that 23 budget as well? It just, the numbers are so numbers.
Well, yeah, so like, listen, all of them have nuances. So on finance, you're taking some contractors, converting them to city staff. So when I'm not paying a company to provide a accountant, and instead I'm paying an accountant directly, I save a little. So even though some people are getting take-home raises, now I'm not paying a contractor. The municipal court side of it, the 50,000 is not included in the 372,000. So you see, okay, we got 356, and then you do all of that math on the increase. Some costs are set costs, like vision and blah, 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 so it doesn't net out to be 5% in the model. But we end up with, that not only will municipal court get 372,000 for labor, they'll also get an additional 50,000 for that contract labor position. Municipal development engineering, everybody should thank Chris Snap over here. Look at that, man. He's the only guy with a negative, right? And that has to do with the fact that we consolidated those departments, and we got a labor savings out of doing the consolidation in the departments. Chris will be in my office at 9 a.m., by the way. And so you know, that's part of it. You know, so you know, I would just say the department numbers all include some adjustment somewhere on the details, but I'm just speaking in terms of a current employee. Any current employee is going to get 5% on November the 15th. If the model includes for one of these departments that they have a vacancy, then the model's recognizing just a vacant position there that wouldn't come in necessarily at that same salary level. So it's just, part of that's just the modeling dynamic. I mentioned last week on the human resources side, I've got some money in human resources that is benefit type stuff and employee insurance type stuff. When Shelley and I went through the budget this year, it just seemed more appropriate to go and put that in our benefits fund instead of having it in the human resources department. So even though that shows 9.5% down, well, yeah, that's because some of the benefit account, the monies that we pay for unemployment insurance and that sort of thing, I just moved those to a different account. So we're still paying those, but they're not in that particular budget. So again, any of the details are something I'd be happy to address, but some of it's a very, very specific thing.
And also, Mayor, I would like, in the council, city manager, I would like us to also not be insensitive to our public service workers. Some of the things they've done, I've seen them do over the years when we had bad weather, kind of almost risking their lives, like, you know, dealing with the fire hydrants and all those type of things. Our city staff, the sacrifices that they make. I don't want them to get lost in all of this. And I just like for the mayor and the council to make sure that we think of them along the way, because as the city grows and demands more, it's going to demand more of them, our public service workers. And we need to be mindful of that, not being insensitive to it.
Well, I think during all of the budget conversations, it was clear to the mayor anyway, and I'm sure to Mike, that our employees are important to us and that we wanted to take care of them. So specific questions for Mr. Sims in regard to these. What I'm hearing is that we want to move forward to try to find the money for the emergency police and fire, and then also for the rest of the staff. So
I had one more
yes.
thing. With the municipal court, I just want to make sure, I just look at the wording where it says the additional $50K pending labor analysis. So is that going to be readily available? I know Judge Schmidt talked to us about some immediate needs, and I really wish we could take a little stress and pressure off of that department.
So the idea would be the budget that you approve would go in effect on October the 1st. on October the 1st, if your municipal court judge needs to hire a contractor who has experience, so on October the 1st, he can have somebody come in and do work, he's got that flexibility. On the other hand, if he says, you know what I'd like to do is to post an ad, do some recruitment, da-da-da, see if I can find somebody who's good, da-da-da, then he'll have that ability. And I'll just be kind of managing that according to however the judge would like to do it. So that's trying to give him flexibility. And we would estimate that a full year of a municipal court clerk is, yes, going to be a little bit higher than 50,000, but between wanting to give them flexibility, grab somebody immediately on a contract basis, and then eventually hire somebody, I think we'll be in a good overall position there. So I think we're getting what the judge needs there.
Okay, thank you.
I think I've heard conversations about this myself, that we want to work with the judge to get this one individual hire that he needs for his staffing. So, okay. Anybody else? Anything else? All right.
Mayor, I'm just going to say that there are other PowerPoint slides there that cover a lot more, and they're the ones I covered quickly last time around. So I would just say, in the interest of time, anybody with comments on those, y'all just let me know. Happy to get them. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to take the input here tonight to say that PowerPoint slide where it said, hey, I need to go find $285,000, then I'm going to take that as my homework assignment and try to come back with a recommendation for you next time around.
Yeah. Real quick on the fire, we're trying to staff Station 3. So we're just going to start the process for Station 3. So how, is that a year out?
Yeah, let me ask Shane to come up. But in short, the idea is, and y'all have seen this in your 3-year strategic plan, the idea is apply for a SAFER grant. We did that in January. Find out we get a SAFER grant because we're very confident. And then by February 1st, we would be in the hiring period, and hopefully our first employees could show up on February 1st. The idea was start with recruiting 10, get them in the organization and trained, let them learn at Station 1 and at Station 2, and then you come back around in the following fiscal year and you request 5 more, and that helps you fully fund everything. So Shane, I'm sure I didn't, I'm sorry, get that exactly right, but add to that or clarify for us.
Yeah, instead of trying to bring them all in at once, we bring them in this way. Hopefully it'll give us the ability to take full advantage of the grant and then reapply for the grant for next year as well.
Okay. So phase them in and then reapply for the year. Okay, got it. Good. Thank you. Council, thank you for your input on all of that. Next item on the agenda is discuss Freeze and Nichols contract amendment for Crossroads Park Design. This is Director of Public Services, Glenn Caldwell.
Mr. Mayor, Council, always a pleasure to be before you. We have an item. It's not an overly extensive item. We can be very brief with this. This is for a Crossroads Park Design Contract Amendment 1A. We have with us Freeze and Nichols, our project engineer for that particular project. Her name is Sherry Chung, and I'm going to have her come up and talk about the actual amendment. But I want to share with you, this is a project we started back November of 2020. We since then worked on this project. We got the contract with our consultant for design services during the December of 2022 period. So that's why we're here today. We obviously took this particular item to the park board, and there was a 4-2 vote on the amendment, which that dollar amount was $72,696 on the against the original contract. So I'll let Ms. Chung come up and talk about the agreement.
All right. Ms. Chung with Freeze and Nichols.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dear council member, thank you for inviting me, kind of like doing this for the Freeze and Nichols. And my name is Sherry Chung. I'm landscape architect and project manager for this Crossroad Park. I'm from Freeze Nichols. And for this amendment contract and for the design services is basically doing the park redesign work. And under these services, we have meetings, sketch and renderings, park drive, and the park layout modification, pedestrian bridge design, restroom building design services, and geotech boring and bridge and restroom building for bridge and restroom building. And so the total amount for this task 6, if you go to the next page 4 of this document, that is $73,789.
So this is a contract not to exceed, and this will be coming back next Tuesday? This isn't a discussion, consider.
Discussion,
Yeah, only discussion only, okay.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Chuck? Okay, go ahead. Questions?
Question for staff here first. Glenn, you mentioned it was a 4-2 vote. What was the concerns that were shared by or by any members and resulted in a 2 not in favor?
4 of the 6 members that were present was favorable to the project. 2 of the members were not favorable because of the contract amount.
They thought it was excessive?
I think they just weren't in favor of the contract because of the cost for the amendment. Now, I can't say whether they determined whether it was excessive or we cannot, as a staff, we cannot negotiate rates for engineering projects in the state of Texas. That's not how it's designed. And I share it with the Park Board, and we've tried to continue to share with the Park Board, that the Park Board is designed for a particular purpose. That's to be a, there's a certain term I want to use.
Advisory board.
Advisory, thank you, that helps me. Advisory board, and not a negotiating entity for contracts with our consultants.
Okay, so the opposition was because of the amount, dollar amount, not because of the project?
That's correct,
Okay, just
Mr.
wanted to
Mayor.
And this is for the councilwoman. I'm
Along
sorry.
those lines, thank you, Glenn. Along those lines, and remind me, Glenn, this is a Texas Wildlife and Parks grant. Was this a 80-20 match? Or I'm trying to figure out how much is the city paying now, and how much more would we pay based on any matching that we?
Great question. This is a 50-50 contract. We have $750, which means $750 will be a contribution from Texas Parks and Wildlife, and we also have a developer that is contributing to this project as well.
Okay, and I'm guessing, I'm not hearing you say that we've passed the 7, or are we estimating that we're going to go over the 750 mark?
No, the total contract for all of the work is $1.5 million. So at this particular juncture, we see no reason to have to request anything over that. So we're just in the design phase. We're only spending design phase dollars. And up to date, I think we've spent $86,000 total on the design phase up to date.
Can I just also clarify, the developer funds have already been paid to the city of Terrell. This is one of the previous developments out there, one of the previous residential developments out there. And so we're able to spend down that dollar amount, which I don't have memorized, but it was in the $800,000 range. So we collected a little bit more than we needed for the grant amount. And so Glenn will just be managing that through the life of this thing. If we have a small cost or overrun above the 1.5 million, we collected a little over the minimum match from the developer, and it's just sitting in an account waiting for us to spend.
Remind me, oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, just kind of remind me of this process with this bid. Were there other firms or companies that bid it, and did they just come in at the lowest? How did we get here?
Well, the consultants don't actually bid the projects.
Okay.
They follow a request for proposal or request for qualification. So you end up, you have the engineering firms prepare a qualification document for review, panel analyze the reports or the analysis that were returned to us, and by committee, you select the finalists, and then from the finalists, out of maybe 5 potential RFQs or RFPs, then you select 1 or 2 to review as a finalist, and then the committee then select one of those 2.
We don't have any idea of, like, cost or anything? It's just based on the criteria you talk?
Yeah.
Again, state of Texas.
Can I help here for a minute? I've got four. There's four engineers sitting in the room. I'm going to pick the one with the most gray hair, and I'm going to ask our Senior Director of Capital Projects if he would just be so kind prior to his pending retirement, if he would give a lecture that he's given multiple times in his career, dust the cobwebs off of the lecture. I'm sorry, Steve, to put you on the spot.
Okay, so in state of Texas, there's a clear set of rules on how you procure consulting engineering services. You do it by solicitation. Once you choose that firm, you are required to negotiate these prices with them. You don't bid one engineer against the other. You can't do bidding. So it's a very clear process in the state of Texas on how you solicit engineers. So this was done through a solicitation process to pick Freese and Nichols. And then you negotiate with them a fee. Now, this right here, if I'm reading this right, if I look at what it says under task 6, that says park redesign. So this is a redesign of something that's already been done. And so you can only negotiate so much. You can haggle and argue with them about particular things. How long is it going to take to do this? How many hours do you have in this? But you can't, we don't bid, we can't compare them against another engineer. We can't shop this around. That doesn't follow state law. Okay, that's the bottom line. Does that help?
It does.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I hate to be Mr. Naysayer tonight, but so I took the liberty of actually talking to some of the park board members who voted nay. I listened to the meeting to kind of understand what was happening with it. Their concerns were not simply related to cost. It was also related to just the park design in general, and the fact that the park is just sort of a drainage ditch behind the movie theater, behind Film Alley, and it kind of just extends over in a little section. And they feel that it's already kind of an overpriced situation for such a minor, it's just a walkway next to a drainage. If you go and see the area, I went and looked at it myself. So it's a walkway next to a drainage ditch, and then you've got a little small section of green space there next to it. It should probably just be a green space to maybe go have a picnic with your family on. The concern that they expressed was they're already paying $150,000 for design for this area, and now they're coming back and saying we only want an additional $74,000. And looking at the space, and I, having seen it, agree that that seems a little egregious, at this point. But just that was the concerns that were expressed, and I'd kind of like to see us. Let me ask you this question: if we did not go with the amendment, what difference would it make in terms of the end result of the project?
I'll let the city manager answer that question. I'm not sure what direction you want to go.
Sure, so I guess I'll just kind of go through it like this. Let's see if there's a good photo or a visual here. Can you go to the next
There
page?
is. There's a drawing.
Yeah, it is, yeah, keep going. Well, yeah, let's start with this one. Yeah, so top part of that PowerPoint slide is Crossroads. On the left is the Magnolia Phase 1. And on the right is the backside of the buildings. And so the drainage ditch mentioned is the one that looks like it's a little bit darker of a green there. So that's the water in the drainage ditch that runs through that little area. And then you can see some trees that were planted by the developer right in that zone. So the part of the project was to say, okay, if I am at Magnolia or on this location here and I want to come down to the project from Crossroads, do I just have an access way to get there? So the intent wasn't necessarily to say that the linear part of this was necessarily park, but the linear part of it was sort of this golf club shape here, that the long linear part of it was a walkway that would give you a chance to access through there. So if you're walking your dog, you got a place to walk your dog. If you want to go stretch your legs, you can do that. And you can view it as a continuation of the trail that, as you can see, just barely on the left-hand side there, we're building that trail that goes all the way around the lake. So the intent was build a trail around the lake, build a trail on Independence, which is the road that will eventually be connecting on the west side of this, and then let that sidewalk and that trail system go up to Crossroads and around. So that way you've got a master plan, it all ties together. And obviously, I would duly admit that this is definitely a part of a master plan, so it has a way of looking kind of awkward as it sticks out there. The next slide, if you would go one more, I believe has kind of the image with things on it. Again, I would duly admit that you gotta kind of stretch your vision a little bit here to see this was a version with a rendering where there was a hotel out there, and the notion was, well, it would be well coordinated in allowing folks who are at a hotel on that vacant piece of land to be able to cross and get down into Film Alley. It would be an attractive area. Instead of having a negative where the drainage is, you would have a positive where the drainage is, and then you would have some active feature at that front. That front end of the golf club, that's 1.6 acres, and the feeling was that 1.6 acres is adequate to have a small cell gathering place. If you have people out there who are visiting Film Alley, you give them a little bit more area to walk around and enjoy, and you give anybody in the apartment complexes, of which there are several in that area, a local park of their own to get down to and enjoy as part of the overall lake. We've had conversations with the developer of the land about the out parcels there, where the notion was, okay, design whatever goes in there, not saying it has to be a hotel, but design whatever goes in there so that it all works together to be a well-designed public space overall. Now, we've met alternately with folks who want to do outdoor restaurant concert venue and hotel and other ideas out there. And so any one of them we would eventually hope to work with to make their site really make sense in terms of everything that's out there. Is it going to look a little awkward for the period of time where there's a vacant piece of land? Heck yeah, it's going to look awkward when there's a vacant piece of land out there. On the other hand, that's sort of the reason that we didn't put the foot on the gas pedal and say, go, go, go as fast as we can. We collected money from a developer as part of a negotiated process to say, hey, the multifamily venture, Magnolia Phase 1, contributed part of that money. Magnolia Phase 2 contributed the second part of the money. We put all of that together. We made some improvements around the lake, the dock that's out there, the trail that goes around. As Magnolia Phase 2 opens up, you'll see more of the trail get constructed around the lake when Magnolia Phase 2 gets there. And we're trying to perform our side of the development agreement, which was they provide money for the project. We apply to Texas Parks and Wildlife. City of Terrell taxpayers don't have to pay for any of it, and we get an amenity out there that is a positive for both us, the future residents, future guests to the entertainment center. So I would say that we took it as staff from the eye of we want to do the best we can with an awkward piece of land where we are assisting to make a good place there. And I think that also from my description, I hope you understand that there was a reason that city staff didn't recommend using city funds on it, because we felt like this was a partnership between the city, the developer paying half of the bill or more, and the Texas Parks and Wildlife coming in and saying, hey, this was a project that they could support. So that's kind of a summary of how we got to where we were.
Okay, so if I may then, all the history of that notwithstanding, what would happen if we didn't accept this amendment and we just went with the design, the engineering as currently planned today? How are we benefiting from adding the 73,000?
I think the answer to that question is the next slide, so I'm sorry, I didn't get to that part of the question there. Oh my gosh, we don't run into that. Where's the schematic? You had the schematic in there. There it is. Okay, yeah. All right, so I would say that one of the most important things here is pedestrian safety. The thing that was most lacking in the original set of plans was the design about how you come in and you park at this location and how pedestrians would get in and out of this location. And so we tried to redesign that for pedestrian safety. I'm not entirely sure that's the last version of it that we ended up with, Glenn, but that's okay. The idea was that that road that has to stub in there to make sure that maybe it's block 5, anyway, the bigger of the lots, the one that I showed you I guess maybe the next slide is a better view of this, so go ahead to the next one. Yeah, see the vacant lot there? You still got to be able to access that vacant parcel where that cursor is that Dawn had. So Dawn, go up right, yeah. You still have to access that. If we get the roadway safety wrong, then we're not going to, have a good park in the long term. And so a lot of the redesign was based on asking the consultant to make sure that they not only redesigned the park, but they added a better design of the roadway, and they actually gave us a roadway that could go to bid as well. And that was the driver there. There were some park redesign elements, but I would call that minor in terms of getting the road done safely out in that zone.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right.
Just what is the plan? Because when I look at, Dawn, I think we have an image here where it shows the pond, the lake there. When I think about when I go out and think about the sidewalk that is around the lake, right now I don't see a connection, and I don't see one on here, on this plan of how this park would connect to the lake. Is that because because that parcel of land is not owned by either, the developer? I see Mike trying to answer. I'm just wondering how and when we will be able to connect that pond over to even the current sidewalk that's there, because you can't even get off the current sidewalk that's currently there without walking along the dirt to get to the trail around the
Yeah,
lake.
I'm actually meeting with the landowner in September to discuss them providing an easement that can be used to facilitate that solution. If we pay for the design services, you're going to end up with that visual, and you're going to end up with that being a thing that we're going to be able to accomplish. I left that out of my explanation in answering the councilman's question, but yeah, the figuring out how we get to the park, that's part of the redesign services.
Thank you. I think it would be helpful, somebody is in a wheelchair, pushing a stroller, if you can keep them on a concrete path.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. I would ask that if you have any further questions, this will come back tomorrow, next Tuesday. If you have any questions, reach out to Mike or to Glenn before we take this under consideration next week. Thank you for your report. Next on the agenda is 9.4, discuss resolution 2096, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving and authorizing the submission of a grant application to the State of Texas Office of the Governor, Public Safety Office, Criminal Justice Division for the purchase of equipment for the Terrell Fire Department and establishing Terrell Police Department and establishing an effective date. This is going to be Arlie, our Deputy Police Chief. Arlie.
This is not a new document to you. We entered into this agreement sometime last year. As is sometimes common, specific verbiage is required, and that's what this is. This is a modification of what was originally submitted to you, so okay. It's not anything new. It's what we bought the ballistic shields with.
Great.
So y'all may remember.
Anybody have any new questions for our Deputy Police Chief? No, thank you very much. Next on the item agenda is 10.1, discuss and consider Terrell Airport Master Plan. Chris Snap. We talked about this last week.
We've talked about it several times,
okay.
Councilman. What I'm going to do, going to start, if you would, Dawn, let's go to, I think it's page 361 that. And what I'm going to do, since we talked about this at the budget retreat, I'm going to kind of kill two birds with one stone with this presentation to kind of expedite, since it's something common to what we've already talked about. But the presentation, well,
It's changed since I printed it. It's the presentation where it has the master plan and the business plan together, PowerPoint presentation.
Do both of those together.
So,
All right, go ahead.
so we're going to proceed on. As you heard from Mr. Richards, that we have support. We had a lot of input from the airport board. They were very active in this conversation. There's a lot of exciting things going on. There's a lot of opportunities out there. And we've got a lot of discussions going on, and there's ample room out there to spread our wings, literally. There you go. So as we proceed through this, I'm going to talk about both plans as we go through it, and then we'll talk back to what is on the agenda. But you've got the business plan and the master plan. The purpose of the business plan, as we go, next slide, there you go. Identify the accountability path forward to enable the Terrell Airport to grow in number of the base tenants and attract more turboprop and jet aircraft. And I'm not going to read all this pages as we go through here, but the whole thrust behind the business plan was how to develop. We had not done one, so this was an opportunity to see what is out there that we could do to increase what the awareness, what the use could be. A lot of good thoughts out there, even looking at our own things of airport rates, going over that, and evaluating some of the things of how we can increase revenue if there's opportunities to do that. We went over several things. We had a feasibility analysis as you were at the retreat. Nathan was there, went through this entire presentation with you again. And we had comparisons. At the top, you can see our local comparative airports out there and the cost and some of the pricing that they have out there to go from. The next page is the land use. This is one that's very important as we kind of develop what are the potential land use items out there, what are the key ticket items out there that we need to focus on. As you recall, one of the items we talked about was the 62 acres at basically the southwest side of the runway up against the I-20 is to purchase that land, and that would gain access to the frontage road of the I-20 that's coming in the future. So you can see how it was broken up and evaluated. That was done through various processes and inputs from the airport committees, pilots that are out there. Go talk about the vision and the results. He talked about additional hangars. We do have a waiting list out there, but as you know, it takes an investment to build those hangars. And we're talking mainly T hangars that have the first where most of the waiting list is involving. Talked about an FBO, moving the FBO adjacent to the terminal, and we'll talk about how this is going to evolve into the capital projects on down the road. That's where I'm going to come and say, I need some money, okay? So, FBO is a fixed-based operator. So that's someone that basically manages your airport on a daily basis, that coordinates with air pilots, that deals with anyone that's coming in, that's making arrangements, and they'll tend to them, get their pilots taken care of, their planes fueled and serviced, cleaned up for them to make a trip, a return trip, so to speak. So that's part of that. We talked about the master plan process, and then we'll talk about into the development plan. And this is where we start talking about the land that's being used out there. We went through this. There was various phases as this can be implemented. And we talked about each of these areas. The crosshatch area, if you recall, we talked about unmanned landing zones. We talked about helicopter pads from there. On the south side of the airport, it's the major hangars that would be corporate jets that would be in larger capacity, and the T hangars and the smaller aircraft would be on the northern end of the airport. Now, coming to this slide, you can see that here we're talking about some of the land that we were talking about. The 62 acres is in the blue area, down at right there where the cursor is located. That's 62 acres. And then
Also purchasing across the street from, across the street. Interstate's a street to me in the country days. But the south side of I-20, this is fly protection zone area that would gain us more insurance as far as protective airport building, someone coming in there and building a hotel and making it 20 stories high. So that gains that protection from doing someone moving in from there. So there's a lot of facets from that. As you look at the airport, it has different colors as you can look at the phasing. Granted, the phasing will kind of come as development comes in. So if someone comes in and wants to develop, this will be our guideline and our tool that we'll look at as a vision. It doesn't mean it's absolute, thou shalt not move, but this is what the consensus, it's almost similar to a comprehensive plan for the city. This is what the direction and the vision as we look forward, we'll try to guide, and this will be our guiding light and tool for that. So we'll get over into the financial side and talk about, we'll just come over here to the end, just go one more slide, one more. And here is where the meat is on the table, okay? And this is what we're going to talk about as far as the funding. Some of the big key items, as you see in the first top, fiscal year of 24. And we talked about this this is the same presentation, the same numbers you've seen at the retreat. So I'm not going to read all these again, but a lot of opportunities, a lot of growth potential out there with moving the FBO next to the terminal, also moving the fuel island where we can self-service fuel. That is a big request for many of the pilots, where when they come in, they land. It's on the weekend, they want to come in for the weekend, see friends or whatever. They come in, they can self-service their fuel, their pilot, their plane, go on, they can use our facilities, refresh, and they're right in town. So big ticket item from there. This is where the funds that we're really needing to focus on, and naturally these do not happen within a couple months. There's a lot of planning involved in this to make this happen. You're aware of the time frame that we went through. I won't go into that, but I would be remiss if I didn't give the opportunity. As you know, this has been Steve's baby for a long time. He's done exceptionally well. He's taught me a lot, and I've gained a lot from that. But I asked Steve, is there anything else that you see that I would like to add?
Well, let me add quickly on it. Thank you. We got Hal Richards with us tonight. Hal's a former mayor for the city of Terrell. He's also a pilot and has been for many decades. And he's got a plane hangared out at, well, I meant that with all affection. And he's got a plane hangar. He's had the plane hangared out at the airport, and he's had a lot of input, and he's given us a lot of wisdom and things to work on this. I want to acknowledge that with Hal. The number one project on here is a safety project, and it was funded before we started this process. It was already funded. We were about to take action at council. TxDOT Aviation pulled this project from their capital improvement program because they said you have to update your master plan. So part of the reason why we're trying to I don't feel like we're pushing, but we're trying to advance this to an approval state so we get this back in the hands of TxDOT Aviation, the master plan approved by council, and that way they can approve it on their end, and we can get funding reinserted back in their capital improvement program. That is a safety item that deals with electrical, our entire electrical system from the primary feed from Encore to all the lights out there. Everything needs to be changed out. And so this is a big, big deal for us that we're trying to push and do on this. These other items, and the good thing about that project is if you notice the very first project at the top there, it's $2.247 million, and we're only obligated for $224,700 because they do a 90-10 split on safety projects like that. And so we're happy to come up with that funding to do a safety project at our airport. And then some of the items have a blank right there. That means there's no federal or state dollars. You have to fund those items totally on your own, like fuel and FBO hangar and things like that. They're important, and that's why we have them on here to put that back on your mind, because we're gonna need to come back and try to advance those projects as soon as we can afford to do that. So, TxDOT did, one more thing, TxDOT did notify us recently that they're publishing a draft CIP. And so we're trying to insert ourselves in FY '24 and get back in it. And this is a big step towards getting approval on this master plan and getting it to them for us to get back in the funding.
Okay.
And we have adequate funding for the 224,700 in our airport fund balances.
Great. So this is an opportunity for us to open up the funding again with the state. For those of you, I think we should be working extremely hard to maximize the airport facilities, the land that's available in and around it. It's a great asset for the city. As far as the funding that isn't there, there's partners that we can reach out to help us on this. I was going by Airport Road Sunday evening about 6:30. There was a dozen planes waiting to fuel or refuel, looked like to me, just lined up, which means the airport's getting utilized, and it's a commitment that we make to help our community and our city grow, and it can be an economic engine for us in the future. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Snap? We've seen these. We have seen the slides, the presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, just real quickly, Mayor, I always thought the potential of our airport has always been underrated. I'm so happy to see a plan like this come forth. When I think about Buc-ee's and the economic driver it is for what we have on 148, I even think bigger in a much broader sense for our airport, being a huge economic driver, attracting investors, I mean, the whole 9 yards. So I'm excited about it.
Good. Anybody else? Thank you, Chris. So item 10.1, discuss and consider airport master plan. I guess we're going to.
The resolution number 2093, Mr. Mayor.
Resolution 2093.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, approving and adopting the Terrell Municipal Airport Master Plan attached hereto as Exhibit A and made a part hereof for all purposes.
All right. Is there a motion on 10.1, which is resolution 2093?
Yes, Mayor, motion to approve resolution number 2093.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Mayrani Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, to approve resolution 2093 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous consent of those present. Next, item 10.2, it goes along with the master plan, is to discuss and consider Terrell Airport business plan. Again, this is was handled by Mr. Snap. Does anybody have any questions for our city engineer? This is going to be, is this a?
This is a discuss and consider also,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Is this a resolution, or what do we pass?
Yes, it is. I'm
What number is it?
trying to find
Is it 2094?
2094.
All right, so, is there a motion on resolution 2094?
Motion to approve resolution number 2094.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve resolution number 2094 as presented. Is there any further discussion?
No, I think it's a very wise decision made by staff and airport board members and those that are very active to have the business plan in conjunction with the master plan to help with the budget, the future budget and the expenses.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda, discuss and consider resolution number 2089, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, giving notice of intent to establish the City of Terrell PACE program. Mr. Sims.
So the main impact here is to take the lengthy presentation that you saw last time on the energy program. You recall we had our partner from the State Energy Office come down and talk through with us the nonprofit that they run and the work that they do. As they informed you, step one out of local government code is not to immediately create it, but step one is to do a notice of intent and do a public hearing. This puts that process in place and allows us to start moving down the path for us to be able to participate in these. As we discussed last time, creating it is creating a opportunity for the private sector, businesses, landowners, building owners, building developers in the city to be able to reach out to the state program, access the state program, get loans, and make energy improvements in their buildings. And so we end up not being involved in that process other than to play matchmaker and then to make sure that we do collection on it just like we did on any other public improvement district. And since we're used to the public improvement district side of that angle, I'm happy to recommend it to you. We didn't feel a need to get our Austin partner up this time around. This wasn't a good council meeting for her to attend to. John sort of shepherded this along. John Godwin shepherded this along for us. He was unavailable tonight, so I would just say I offer it to you as a good next step in the process and feel like we covered it at great length last time around.
Yes, and this is a zero cost to the city. So does anybody have any new questions? Hearing none, is there?
I have a quick question.
Okay.
So doing a little research on it myself, I noted that not all improvements made using PACE funding always result in energy or water cost savings. And so they may or may not end up producing much in the way of savings, for the public. So have we talked to anyone, have we explored how this has impacted other cities or explored sort of individual businesses who've utilized this program? Are there any horror stories or negatives or? Because the last person felt like a commercial for it. Have we explored what the real world ramifications or what it's?
So the answer is yes. I would say that I don't think of it as a city-by-city performance issue. I view it as a project-by-project performance issue. So I would say that there's definitely going to be the requirement for due diligence on any applicant's part. The part that would be difficult for the city to police and enforce is whether or not a building owner is really making 100% the right decision. You got to put them together with consultants, you got to put them together with experts. I definitely wouldn't say that it's a program that you put an inexperienced or unsophisticated person with, because it takes a lot of knowledge to be able to do that. I think that even the speaker, it may seem like a commercial, but I would say that I think even the speaker would admit, and I think she even did say, that you got to be big enough for it to be sophisticated enough to be worth your time to pay for people to really go through the details of it. I think it is exactly the wrong program for little teeny tiny small projects. It just is a bad fit. But we have a small number of existing businesses in town that, I'm saying, are existing commercial structures in town that would be the right size for it. I've met with hospital developers who said, we can only come to your city if you have this. I've met with hotel developers who say, we can only come to your city if you have this. So
They have experience utilizing that.
absolutely, yeah, right, yeah. The folks I've met with have said, yes, we did that before in this other city, worked out great. It was an important part of the capital program. We'd like to do it, da-da-da.
I still want to see our small business owners get involved in something that might have been,
I couldn't tell you how much I agree with you. I think this is only, we do a lot of things where we say, hey, this is available for small and big, small and big, small and big. In this particular case, I would say if you don't have a 20,000 square foot building, maybe even bigger than that, you probably don't have a good PACE project, because it just isn't going to be, it isn't going to make sense for you. So, for the small number of projects we have in town that come forward to say, hey, I'm a rehab, I'm pretty darn big. I don't want to name names, but I think we can all think of you know, former big box stores that aren't full of big box anymore. There might be a couple of those in town that would be the right size. But by and large, I think it's going to be new folks and big new things. So that's who's the right size for this. It's a perfectly good question, because I don't want to oversell it either. I would just say it's nice, it's a tool in the toolbox, we'll use it occasionally. You got to be careful.
Yeah. Okay. Good question. Anyone else? All right, is there a motion on resolution number 2089?
Yes, Mayor, motion to approve resolution number 2089.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second it.
All right. There's a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Phil Robinson, District 5, to approve resolution number 2089 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Next item on the agenda is 10.4, discuss and consider 2019 Kaufman County Bond Fund allocations. This is our downtown project manager, Raylan Smith. Go ahead.
Good evening. Again, before you is just kind of a recap of what we discussed during your August 3rd and 4th budget retreat. We are looking at the $8,450,000 that was allocated during the 2019 Kaufman County Transportation Bond. Mayor and I met with Commissioner Barber, and we are proposing the attached letter in your packet, which would reallocate those funds between the three projects that were listed in their bond packet, which is Complete Streets, includes US 80 and Spur 226, Las Lomas Parkway, and the UPRR quiet zones.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Raylan on this? We are going to, we're asking for the council to take action to move forward with.
It's the signature on the letters.
Right, yeah. The reallocation.
Reallocation of the 2019 Kaufman County Bond Fund allocation.
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion on 10.4?
Motion to move forward with the reallocation request for the 2019 Kaufman County Bond Fund allocation as presented.
Thank you, Councilwoman. The next one, is there a second?
All right, second.
I have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to move forward with the reallocation of the 2019 Kaufman County Bond Fund allocation. Is there any further discussion? Yes.
I was kind of concerned with this, with the movement, because I know the Las Lomas, I mean, we got to connect that. It's going to be a horror story here in a few years if we don't. So I was kind of concerned, but just after talking to city management, we may have some opportunities for grants or something. So hopefully that'll work out. But I was concerned about that because I think we need to eventually get that connectivity, I'm thinking, to kind of help smooth things out there, the Las Lomas. But I just wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries for unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 10.5. We need a motion to postpone, please.
Motion to postpone item 10.5.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
So I have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to postpone item 10.5, ordinance number 2997. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries for unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 10.6. Again, is there a motion to postpone?
Motion to postpone item 10.6.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to postpone item 10.6, resolution number 2088. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries for unanimous consent of those present. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda. It is 11.1. It is resolution number 2090. Is there a motion on the consent agenda item?
Motion to approve consent agenda, including items 11.1 and 11.2.
So we're taking up both. I have a motion, is there a second?
I second.
Have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve both items on the consent agenda, 11.1 and 11.2. Those are ordinances, one resolution 2090 and the other ordinance number 3004. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is to receive monthly housing update. If you would, please just reach out to our staff on that item. We have no executive session. We are adjourned.